There is a kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. You know the one. You've been in bed for 8 hours and you wake up already tired, not from dreaming, but from the night itself, from the hours you spent lying there, eyes closed, while your mind held its own private court session, reviewing, revisiting, reconstructing conversations that ended 3 days ago, rehearsing conversations that haven't happened yet, running calculations on things you cannot control, outcomes you cannot predict, disasters that exist only in the space between your pillow and the dark ceiling above you. And somewhere around 2 a.m. you thought, why can't I just stop? Not as a question, as a surrender. Because you've tried, you have genuinely, earnestly tried. The breathing techniques, the no screens before bed rules, the chamomile tea going cold on the nightstand, the journal that started hopefully and now sits half-filled, abandoned somewhere in the drawer. You've read the articles, you've downloaded the apps, you've counted your breaths until the counting itself became one more thing your mind was doing instead of resting. And still, the thoughts come. So, not loudly always. That's the strange part. Sometimes it isn't even anxiety exactly. It's more like a hum, a low, persistent hum running beneath the surface of your day, and beneath the surface of your night, and beneath the surface of every quiet moment that was supposed to feel peaceful, but somehow didn't quite. You sit in a beautiful place, and something in you is still somewhere else, still working, still watching, still waiting for something to go wrong. You have probably wondered at some point if this is just who you are. Maybe you've said it out loud. I'm just an anxious person. Said it almost casually, the way you'd describe your hair color or your height, as if it were simply a fixed feature of you, unchangeable, built in. Something to manage, not something to understand. But here is what I want to offer you tonight. Not as a diagnosis, not as a prescription, but as a quiet truth that took me a long time to find. Your mind is not racing because it is broken. It is racing because it learned to. There is a concept in psychology called hypervigilance. It sounds clinical. It sounds like something from a textbook, something cold and distant. But what it really describes is something actually human. It describes a nervous system that was trained, usually early, usually quietly, usually without anyone meaning any harm, to stay alert, to never fully exhale, to treat stillness not as rest, but as a gap in your defenses. The nervous system of a child is extraordinarily intelligent. It reads everything. It absorbs the emotional temperature of a room before it even knows words for what it's feeling. And when that environment is unpredictable, when love comes and goes without explanation, when a parent's mood determines the weather of an entire household, when you never quite knew which version of home you were walking into, the nervous system draws a conclusion, a very logical, very protective conclusion. It decides, I cannot afford to stop paying attention, and so it doesn't. It learns to scan, to read faces the way other people read headlines, to listen for tone beneath words, tension beneath silence, to always be half a step ahead, because half a step ahead meant you could prepare, and preparation felt like the closest thing to safety. That was you, maybe so young you can barely picture it now, standing in the hallway, listening, reading the air, learning to know things before they were said. And here is what no one told you. The nervous system never forgets a lesson that kept it alive, even when the hallway is gone, even when you are grown and the house is different and the people are safer and you have built a life that your younger self would have marveled at. The body remembers. It keeps the old instructions. It runs the old software on the new life because no one ever came to tell it the emergency was over. Bessel van der Kolk spent decades studying exactly this. He found that trauma, and I use that word gently here, not just for the dramatic moments but for the slow accumulation of smaller ones, doesn't live primarily in the mind. It lives in the body, in the held breath, in the shoulders that rise without reason, in the stomach that tightens before a conversation, in the mind that spins at midnight not because you have chosen to think, but because thinking is the only form of safety your body has ever fully trusted. The racing isn't random, it is loyal. It keeps returning to the unfinished things. The feelings that didn't have permission to exist at the time. The grief that got packed away because the moment demanded you keep moving. The anger you swallowed so many times it dissolved into anxiety. The needs you learned to stop naming because naming them changed nothing. Your mind races toward all of it, still, years later. Not to torture you, to finish the work. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious mind is not our enemy. It is, he said, the part of us that is still trying to become whole. The racing, the looping, the spinning, the relentless revisiting is the unconscious refusing to leave things unresolved. It is the part of you that still believes, somewhere beneath all the exhaustion, that understanding is possible, that peace is possible, that if you just think about it enough, clearly enough, you will finally find the door that leads out of the room you've been pacing in for years. But here is the quiet, tender irony of all of this. The door doesn't open through more thinking. It opens through something that feels, at first, almost too simple to be real. It opens when you stop trying to outrun what's chasing you and turn around. Slowly, gently, without drama, and let it catch up. There is a small practice. You don't need anything for it. No app, no journal, no ritual. Just a moment of stillness and a willingness to be honest with yourself in the dark. When the thoughts begin their circuit tonight, and they will, they have their habits too. Try something different. Instead of following the thought, watch it. The way you'd watch a car pass on a street outside a window. You see it, you don't chase it. And then, softly, ask yourself, what is this thought protecting me from feeling? Because beneath almost every racing thought, there is a feeling that hasn't been allowed to land. Beneath, did I say the wrong thing in that meeting? There is often the older ache of not being enough. Beneath, what if everything falls apart? There is often a child who once watched things fall apart and was never reassured that they would be okay. The thought is not the thing. The thought is the guard standing in front of the thing. When you can begin to feel that, when you can sit with the feeling underneath rather than chasing the thought on top, something in the body begins to shift. Slowly, almost imperceptibly. The way ice doesn't melt all at once, but begins at the edges, quietly, in the direction of warmth. There is something else, something that neuroscience has been quietly discovering for the last 2 decades. Something that the ancient practitioners of every culture somehow already knew. The body holds the key to what the mind cannot unlock alone. When the hum begins, when the chest tightens and the thoughts accelerate and the night feels too loud inside your own head, try placing one hand on your chest, just one hand. Warm, still, present, and breathe. Not the performance of breathing, not counted, timed, disciplined breathing. Just a breath the way a child breathes when they have finally cried themselves out and someone they trust is near. Slow, uneven, real. Say nothing, or say the only thing that has ever actually helped. I am here, I am not leaving. You don't need to say it to anyone else. Say it to yourself. To the part of you that has been running the watch shift alone for 20, 30, 40 years. Waiting for someone to come and say, it's okay to rest now. This is not weakness. This is, in fact, one of the most difficult things a person can do, because it requires you to trust that the stillness won't swallow you, that the silence isn't a threat, that you are safe enough, finally, to exhale all the way. And that trust does not come overnight. I won't pretend it does. Healing is not a revelation, it is a practice. It is choosing, again and again, on the ordinary, unremarkable Tuesday evenings and the 3 a.m. spirals alike, to meet yourself with something gentler than judgment. Gabor Maté writes that the greatest damage done to us is not the trauma itself. It is the loss of connection to ourselves that the trauma produces. The way we learn to leave our own bodies when they become too uncomfortable to inhabit. The way we live so much in our heads because our heads felt, once, like the only safe country. Coming home to yourself, after years of living like a guest in your own body, is quiet work, unglamorous work. It doesn't look like transformation from the outside. It looks like a person sitting still for 5 minutes without reaching for their phone. It looks like letting a difficult feeling exist without immediately explaining it away. It looks like learning slowly to trust the silence, and then one morning, not dramatically, you notice something. The hum is quieter, not gone maybe, not yet, but quieter, like a radio in the next room instead of the one pressed against your ear. You wake up and there is a moment, brief, tentative, almost shy, where your first thought is not a worry, where the mind doesn't immediately reach for the list of everything that could go wrong today. Just a moment, just a breath. But you feel it, and you know what it is. It is the beginning of trust. Your nervous system, slowly, learning a new thing. Learning that you are not in the old hallway anymore. That the weather doesn't turn without warning here. That you made it out, and the thing that was protecting you can finally begin to rest. You were never someone who couldn't slow down. You were someone who had every reason to stay fast, and not enough evidence yet that slow was safe. Now you are gathering that evidence. One quiet breath at a time. One night that ends better than it began. One moment of stillness that doesn't frighten you the way it used to. The mind that races is not your enemy. It is the most faithful part of you. The part that refused to give up, that kept standing guard, that loved you in the only language it had ever been taught. And now you are teaching it a new one, slowly, without force, with the kind of patience you always deserved to be given, and are only now learning to give yourself. That is not a small thing. That is everything.